Welcome to the tutorial on mastering the rectangle and three-point rectangle tools in CorelDRAW. Let us start with the rectangle tool. This icon in the toolbox bar is for the rectangle tool. It has a keyboard shortcut of F6. Hidden behind this little black triangle is the three-point rectangle tool. You can use either of these to draw rectangles and squares. The three-point rectangle tool is primarily used to easily and quickly draw rectangles and squares that are to be positioned at an angle. Let us first draw some rectangles using the rectangle tool. Select the rectangle tool by either clicking on the rectangle tool icon in the toolbox bar or by pressing the F6 key on your keyboard. Left-click and hold the mouse button and drag the mouse to draw the rectangle. Move the mouse up and to the right of your start point. And without releasing the mouse button, move the mouse to the left of your start point. You can move the mouse below the start point to its left or right. The purpose of this exercise is to display that the point from which you start drawing your rectangle or square, that point, becomes the anchor point. As you are dragging the mouse to draw the rectangle, if you look at the left end of the properties bar, you will see the length and width of the rectangle changing as you draw the rectangle. I have a red rectangle highlighting the size measurement fields in the properties bar in order to help you spot these fields. The top field tells you the length of the object and the bottom field tells you the height of the object. When you get to the size of the rectangle that you wish to draw, release the mouse button. You can also pick an anchor point that will be the center of the rectangle you are about to draw. Left-click and hold the mouse button at this point and press and hold the Shift key. Start dragging your mouse to form a rectangle. Notice that the point from which you started drawing this object is always right in the center as you're dragged to adjust and draw the rectangle. Release the mouse button and then the Shift key when you get to the required size for this rectangle. Drawing a square is almost similar to drawing a rectangle. To draw a square, left-click and hold the mouse button at the start point. Press and hold the Control key, Command key on the Mac, and drag the mouse to draw a perfect square. Here as well, the starting point becomes the anchor point. When you get the right size for your square, first release the mouse button and then release the Control key, Command key on the Mac. To draw a square, with the anchor point in the center of the square, left-click and hold the mouse button at the start point. Now press and hold the Shift key and the Control key, Command key on the Mac. Drag the mouse to draw a square. Notice that the anchor point is perfectly centered within the square. When you get the right size for your square, first release the mouse button and then release the Shift key and the Control key, Command key on the Mac. Resizing an object. Using the Pick tool, click on an object to select it. You will see 8 small black squares pop up along the outline of the object. With the Pick tool, left-click and hold on one of the black squares on a corner and pull it diagonally outwards or push it diagonally inwards. You will see the object enlarge or reduce in size depending on the direction of the mouse movement. Note that the black square on the corner that is diagonally opposite to the selected black square becomes the anchor point. And the enlargement or reduction in size is proportionate. Left-click and hold on one of the black squares on the corners and then press and hold the Shift key. Pull the selected object diagonally outwards or push it diagonally inwards. Notice that the object increases or decreases in size while holding the anchor point in the center of the object. Similarly, If you grab a black square in the middle of one of the sides and pull it outwards or push it inwards, two things happen. 1. The size increases or decreases depending on the direction of the pull or push. 2. If the object was a square to start with, its shape changes into a rectangular object. Repeat the same action with the addition of pressing and holding the Shift key. The center point of this object becomes the anchor point, and the enlargement or reduction in the size of the object happens around the anchor point. For quick and precise resizing of an object while maintaining its proportions, make certain that this lock up in the Properties bar is active. This will ensure a proportionate change in all the sides of the object. Click in either the length field or the height field and type the new measurement for that side. Press Enter. The size of the object changes accordingly while maintaining its proportions. If you want to resize the object while not maintaining the proportions, then make sure the lock feature is inactive and enter a value for the desired length. Hit Tab to move the cursor to the height field. Enter the new value for the height and press Enter. Skew and rotate an object. You can skew as well as rotate an object. With the Pick tool selected, left-click and release on an object to select it and bring up the 8 black squares around its outline. Once selected, left-click on the object one more time and release the mouse button. The 8 black squares vanish, and instead you see 8 double-sided arrows. Along the 4 sides, you see small straight lines with arrowheads on both ends of these lines. These are the skew control handles. And around the 4 corners, you see small curved lines with arrowheads on both ends of these curved lines. These are the rotation control handles. And in the middle of this object, you will see a small circle with a dot in its center. This is the anchor point for this object. Left-click and hold on one of the horizontal skew control handles along the sides of this object and move your mouse to the right or to the left. You will see the object shape skew along the direction of the mouse movement. Release the button once you get the skew you need. Once again, double-click the left mouse button on an object to bring up the skew and rotation control handles. This time, left-click and hold one of the skew control handles along a vertical side of the object. And press and hold the Control key, Command key on the Mac, and move the mouse up or down. Notice that the object snaps at certain intervals. The default setting of the constrain angle is 15 degrees. This helps you skew an object to a precise angle. Of course, the default setting for the constrain angle can be changed from the control panel. Release the mouse button once you get the skew angle you require. For rotation, double-click on the object to bring up the skew and rotation controls for this object. Due to the default settings, the anchor point sits in the middle of the object. Now left-click and hold on a rotation control handle in one of the corners and move the mouse up or down to rotate the object. Note that the rotation is anchored in the center of the object. Release the mouse button when done. Let's see what happens when we move the anchor point to a different spot. Left-click and hold the anchor to move it. I will move mine to the top left corner. Release the mouse button. Left-click and hold any one of the rotation control handles and move it around. The rotation of the object occurs around the anchor point placed in that corner. Release the mouse button. Now, left-click and hold on the anchor and move it to the right, placing the anchor in the center of the top outline between the top right and top left corners. Release the mouse button and grab one of the rotation control handles and move the mouse around. Note that the rotation takes place around the new position of the anchor point. The placement of the anchor controls the rotation of an object even when it is placed outside of the object's outline. With the left mouse button, grab the anchor and move to place it outside the left bottom corner. Release the mouse button. Grab one of the rotation control handles and move the mouse around. You will notice that all the corners move in a circular direction while keeping the corner next to the anchor connected to the anchor point. Release the mouse button. Grab the anchor point and move it so it sits in the middle of a side, but keep the anchor outside the object's outline. Now grab one of the rotation control handles and move the mouse. The rectangle will rotate in a circular direction around the anchor, remaining connected to the anchor. Shaping the corners. With the Pick tool, click and select an object on the page. These three icons, up in the Properties bar, control the type of corners you can create. The first icon here is for round corners. The one after is for scalloped corners. And the third icon is for chamfered corners. To the right, these four fields are part of the corner radius group. They tell you the radius of each corner of an object that is drawn using the rectangle or the three-point rectangle tool. When the object's corners are at 90 degrees, meaning that they are not rounded, scalloped or chamfered at all, the readings in these fields will show the corner radius to be 0 inches. The top left field shows you the radius of the top left corner of the object, and the top right field shows you the radius of the top right corner of the object. Similar logic applies to the bottom two fields. This icon in the middle, the lock, controls the proportions of the four corners when in active state. With this lock active, if you change the value of one corner, the other three corners are adjusted proportionately. If you wish to control each corner independently, then deactivate the lock. This will allow you to enter individual radius values for each corner. Click on this icon for round corner to make it active. With the object still selected, click and select the Shape tool. You will see the outline of this object change from a solid line to a dash line. And you will see a black square on each of the four corners of the object. With the Shape tool, left-click and hold on one of these squares and drag it diagonally inwards towards the center point of the object or along one of the two sides that form this corner. Notice that the corners that had 90-degree angles get rounded as you move the mouse away from that corner. If you take a look at the corner radius group up in the Properties bar, you will see the radius values of each corner changing along with the movement of the mouse. Drag the mouse all the way and release the mouse button. Notice the change in the shape of the object that started out as a rectangle. Watch what happens when you do the same with a square-shaped object. Using the Shape tool, grab one of the black squares on a corner of this square object and drag it inwards as far as possible. Release the mouse button when you reach the maximum. The square changes into a circle. Switch to the Pick tool. With the Pick tool selected, click on an object to select it. If the lock, up in the Properties bar, is not already active, click on it to make it active. Place your cursor in one of the corner radius fields and type in a value. I am entering 0.5 inches. Press Enter. You will see all four corners change to rounded corners with the radius of 0.5 inches. Now click on the lock icon up in the Properties bar to deactivate it. Click in the field for the top right corner and enter the value 0.25 inches. Press Enter. The radius for that corner changes to 0.25 inches and you can see the change to that corner. Now enter the value of 1 inch in the bottom left corner radius field and press Enter. This corner, as expected, now has a radius of 1 inch. These same rules apply to scalloped and chamfered corners. Left-click once on a blank area of the canvas. With the pick tool selected, click and select another object. Then click to make the scalloped icon active. This will automatically deactivate the other corner radius icons. Now, switch to the Shape tool and left-click and hold on one of the corners and drag it inwards or away from that corner. Release the mouse button and switch to the Pick tool to get a better look at the changed object. Switch back to the Shape tool. Grab one of the black squares and drag it further away from the initial point to its maximum. Switch back to the Pick tool and left-click once on a blank area of the canvas. Repeat the same steps with a square object. With the Shape tool selected, drag one of the black squares to the maximum distance from the initial point. Switch to the Pick tool and left-click once on a blank area of the canvas. Just like with the round corner feature, you can manually enter the values for the scalloped corners. With the lock active, click in one of the corner fields and a value of 0.75 inches. All 4 corners are proportionately changed to reflect a radius of 0.75 inches. Now, with the lock feature deactivated for individual scalloping of each corner, click in a field in the corner radius group and enter 0.5 inches. Then click in another field and enter 0.25 inches. Press Enter to accept the changes. Similarly, with the Pick tool selected, click and select another object. Then click to make the chamfered icon active. This will automatically deactivate the other corner radius icons. Switch to the Shape tool. Left-click and hold on one of the corners and drag it inwards, away from that corner. Release the mouse button and switch to the Pick tool to get a better look at the changed object. Switch back to the Shape tool and grab one of the black squares and drag it further away from the initial point to its maximum. Switch back to the Pick tool and left-click once on a blank area of the canvas. With the Shape tool selected, click and select a square object. Use the Shape tool to grab and drag one of the black squares to the maximum distance from the initial point. Switch to the Pick tool and left-click once on a blank area of the canvas. Notice that in this case, when you reach the maximum value, your object takes on the shape of a square, but it stands on one of its corners instead of being on one of its sides. Just like with the round corner feature, you can manually enter the values for the chamfered corners. With the lock active, click in one of the corner fields and enter a value of 0.75 inches. Press Enter. All 4 corners are proportionately changed to reflect a radius of 0.75 inches. Now, with the lock feature deactivated, click in a field in the corner radius group and enter 0.5 inches. Then click in another field and enter 1 inch. Press Enter. The default setting for the corner radius is 0 inches. If you wish to change the default setting, then press Ctrl-J, Command-J on the Mac to open the Options panel. Click on the triangle next to Workspace. Scroll down and click on the triangle next to Toolbox. From the Toolbox section, click on Rectangle tool. On the right side of this window, you will first see these 3 icons for round corner, scalloped corner, and chamfered corner. You can click on one of these icons to make it your preferred default choice. For this example, I will choose chamfered corner. Below that, you have the 4 fields where you can enter the default corner radius of your choice for each corner. I am setting this to 0.5 inches. In the middle of these 4 fields is the lock. If you wish to keep the lock active as a default setting, then click on it to make it active. By the way, look at the lock icon for the radius fields in the Properties bar. Each time you click on the lock icon in the Options panel, you will see the lock icon alter its state in response to your selection. Below that, we have the icon to set the corner scaling icon to active or inactive. I am choosing active as the default setting. Click OK to accept the changes. Now, when you draw a rectangle or a square with round, scalloped, or chamfered corners, the corner radius will be 0.5 inches, as set in the Options panel. Relative corner scaling. Here, we have two identical objects. They have the exact same measurements. Both have a length of 4 inches and a height of 2 inches. Both have rounded corners with the corner radius of 0.5 inches. With the Pick tool selected, click on the first object. This icon, up in the Properties bar, is for relative corner scaling. If it is not already active, click on it to make it active. With the Pick tool selected, left-click and hold on the black square that is in the center of the bottom outline of this object. Drag it all the way down to the bottom of the canvas. Note that the corner radius on all 4 corners increases as the size of the object increases. Release the mouse button when done. Note the new corner radius. My values show that the corner radius has doubled from 0.5 inches to 1 inch. Your corner radius readings might vary depending on the size of your object. Now, use the Pick tool to click and select the second object. Up in the Properties bar, click on the icon for relative corner scaling to deactivate it. Just like before, using the Pick tool, left-click and hold on the black square in the center of the bottom outline. Drag it all the way down to the bottom of the canvas. Note that the corner radius on all 4 corners remains unchanged as the size of the object increases. Release the mouse button when done. The corner radius remains unchanged at 0.5 inches. Grouping and ungrouping objects. Here we have 4 objects placed one on top of the other. You are able to select any one of these objects, individually or collectively, using the Pick tool or using the marquee. With the Pick tool selected, left-click and hold on an object. Drag the mouse to move this object. Press Ctrl-Z, Command-Z on a Mac to undo this move. Let us group these 4 objects. Draw a marquee around the 4 objects to select all of them. Now, click on Object up in the menu bar. Scroll down and hover over Group to open the sub-menu. From the sub-menu, click on Group Objects. Now when you click on any object that is part of this group, you select all of them as a group. Press Ctrl-Z, Command-Z on a Mac to undo the grouping. Left-click on a blank area on the canvas to deselect all the objects. You can marquee and select all the objects and press Ctrl-G to group them. Now when you click on any object that is part of this group, you select all of them as a group. Press Ctrl-Z, Command-Z on a Mac to undo the grouping. Left-click on a blank area on the canvas to deselect all the objects. Marquee and select all these objects. Now, right-click on the selected objects to open a pop-up menu. From the pop-up menu, click on Group Objects. As grouped objects, you can left-click on any one of them and resize them as a group. Hit Delete on your keyboard and all of them get deleted. Press Ctrl-Z, Command-Z on a Mac to undo the delete action. These 2 icons, up in the Properties bar, are to mirror an object, horizontally or vertically. This icon will mirror the object horizontally, while this icon will mirror the object vertically. With this object selected, click on the Mirror Horizontally icon. The group of these 4 objects is now mirrored along the y-axis. Keep the object selected and click on the Mirror Vertically icon. As you can see, this group of objects is mirrored along the x-axis. Keep the object selected. Let us ungroup these objects. There are 4 ways to do this. With the grouped objects selected, click on Object in the menu bar. Scroll down to Group to open the sub-menu. From the sub-menu, click on Ungroup Objects. Left-click and release on a blank spot on the canvas to deselect all the objects. Then left-click on one of the objects, and this time it is only that object which is selected, instead of the whole group. Press Ctrl-Z, Command-Z on the Mac to undo that last action. Left-click and release on a blank spot on the canvas to deselect all the grouped objects. Left-click and release to select the grouped objects. With the group objects selected, press Ctrl-U, Command-U on the Mac. Left-click and release on a blank spot on the canvas to deselect all the objects. Now, left-click on one of the objects, and this time it is only that object which is selected, instead of the whole group. Press Ctrl-Z, Command-Z on the Mac to undo that last action. Left-click and release on a blank spot on the canvas to deselect all the grouped objects. Left-click and release to select the grouped objects. With the grouped objects selected, right-click on the grouped objects to open a pop-up menu. From this menu, click on Ungroup Objects. Left-click and release on a blank spot on the canvas to deselect all the grouped objects. Then left-click on one of the objects, and this time it is only that object which is selected, instead of the whole group. Press Ctrl-Z, Command-Z on the Mac to undo that last action. Left-click and release on a blank spot on the canvas to deselect all the grouped objects. Left-click and release the mouse button to select these grouped objects. This icon, up in the Properties bar, is to ungroup objects. With the grouped objects selected, click on this icon to ungroup these objects. Left-click on a blank area of the canvas to deselect these objects. Now you are able to select them individually and move them, or delete them, or change their properties, etc. Changing object order. You can change the order in which the objects are placed together. Click and select an object that is sitting behind all the other objects. There are 2 ways to bring this object to the front. Click on Object up in the menu bar. Then scroll down to Order to open the sub-menu. From the sub-menu, click on To Front of Page to bring this object all the way to the top. Similarly, to move an object to the very back of a group of objects, with the object selected, click on Object from the menu bar. Scroll down to Order to open the sub-menu. From the sub-menu, click on To Back of Page. You can do the same actions using keyboard shortcuts. Click and select an object that sits behind at least one other object. Press Ctrl-Home and bring that object all the way to the top. And Ctrl-End to move it to the very back of the group of objects. Here is a demonstration of, instead of moving the object all the way to the front or all the way to the back, we will move the object up or down by one object at a time, or move it up or down specific to a target object. Click on the object in the very back of the group. To move it up over the object one position on top, click on Object in the menu bar and scroll down to Order. From the sub-menu, click on Forward 1. Or press Ctrl Page Up on your keyboard. To move an object one position back, click on Object in the menu bar and scroll down to Order. From the sub-menu, click on Back 1. Or press Ctrl Page Down on your keyboard. If you want to move an object in front of a specific object in the group, then select the object and click on Object in the menu bar. Scroll down to Order. From the sub-menu, click on In Front of. Then click the target object to move your selected object in front of the target object. Similarly, to move an object behind a target object in the group, select the object and click on Object in the menu bar. Scroll down to Order. From the sub-menu, click on Behind. Then click the target object to move your selected object behind that target object. Now let us have a look at the 3-point rectangle tool. The 3-point rectangle tool is ideal for drawing rectangles and squares at an angle. Click on the little black triangle at the bottom right corner of the rectangle tool icon in the toolbox bar, and from the sub-menu that opens, click on this icon for the 3-point rectangle tool. To draw a rectangle using the 3-point rectangle tool, left-click and hold the mouse button at the start point. Drag the mouse diagonally and release the mouse button when you get to the intended endpoint. Drag the mouse up or down to start drawing the rectangle. Left-click once when you get the size of the rectangle you have in mind. This will complete the rectangle and disengage the cursor from the canvas. To draw a square, left-click and hold the mouse button at the start point. Drag the mouse diagonally. When you get to the end point, release the mouse button, press and hold the Control key and move the mouse diagonally, up or down. You will see a square form. Left-click once when you have the right size. Release the Control key. If you wish to draw a rectangle at a specific angle, using the 3-point rectangle tool, then left-click and hold the mouse button at the start point. Press and hold down the Control key and drag the mouse drawing a line. Move your cursor up or down, and you will notice that the line snaps at certain intervals. The default setting for the constrain angle is 15 degrees. This can be changed from the options panel. From this line being in a horizontal position, I am going to let the line snap at 3 interval points in order to get to the 45-degree angle I am looking for. Drag the mouse along the 45-degree angle to the intended endpoint. Release the mouse button and then release the Control key. Move the mouse up or down to draw the rectangle. Left-click once to complete the rectangle and disengage the cursor from the canvas. To draw a square at a specific angle, left-click and hold the mouse button at the start point. Press and hold down the Control key and move the mouse to get the required angle for the line. In my case, it is 45 degrees. Drag the mouse diagonally to the intended endpoint. Release the mouse button, but not the Control key. Keep the Control button pressed down and move the mouse up or down to draw the square. Left-click once to complete the square and disengage the cursor from the canvas. Release the Control key as well. I have drawn this green line at a 45-degree angle for visual confirmation. To draw a rectangle at a 45-degree angle that is centered around this line, pick a start point somewhere on this green line and left-click and hold the mouse button. Press and hold down the Control key and move the mouse to draw the line at a 45-degree angle. Drag the mouse diagonally to the intended endpoint. Release the mouse button as well as the Control key. Press and hold the Shift key on the keyboard and move the mouse up or down to draw the rectangle. Left-click once to complete the rectangle and disengage the cursor from the canvas. With the green line present for a visual confirmation, you can see that the rectangle is, in fact, drawn keeping the green line in the center. To draw a square at a 45-degree angle, centered around this line, pick a start point somewhere on this green line and left-click and hold the mouse button. Press and hold down the Control key and move the mouse to draw the line at a 45-degree angle. Drag the mouse diagonally to the intended endpoint. Release the mouse button, but keep holding down the Control key. Press and hold the Shift key as well, and move the mouse up or down to draw the square. Left-click once to complete the square and disengage the cursor from the canvas. Release the Control key and the Shift key. That brings us to the end of this tutorial on mastering the rectangle and 3-point tool in CorelDRAW. Please take your time exploring this tool and get familiar with all its features and capabilities. Next, we will start by learning about the Ellipse tool and all the tools in the Polygon tool group. To learn about the Ellipse and Polygon tools, please access the Mastering the Ellipse tool and the Polygon tools in CorelDRAW tutorial. Or, click on the link provided below in the description of this video. To access the previously published tutorials, please click on the links provided below for those tutorials in the description of this video.